Hi, I'm Caden, here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're watching Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
On this episode of Eating W's, are you ready for some football? It is finally here. It is finally happening. It is our Week 1 NFL predictions episode. We have been waiting for this moment all off season. This is our favorite part of the year, of course, because it's football, but also because we both love making the predictions and trying to guess the games. So we are excited to get rolling.
Yep, it's time. It's time to go. It's been a long summer. It's been a long off season, and I'm ready for Week 1. It's just a couple days away, and then even just a few more days from Sunday. Get ready to watch some Red Zone.
Yep. Lots of news, lots of events, lots of trades happening up to this point, and just a few more bits of news right here before we finally jump into our Week 1 predictions. And ironically, very Vikings heavy, which we didn't even mean to do, but it's kind of just how it fell. A big release, the Vikings release former first-round pick and former Eagle Jalen Reagor, and he is now a free agent again after a very poorly receptive career, to say the least. When you go 22nd overall in the NFL draft, just expect a little more out of that guy. And sadly for him, he had Justin Jefferson go right behind him, so that certainly didn't help him either. But
yeah, it seems like all the talent went to one side of that pick.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was bad timing for him.
Yeah.
Now we got a few extensions here. Another Vikings one, with the Vikings signing tight end TJ Hawkinson to a 4-year, $66 million deal. And then keeping in the NFC, we have the Dallas Cowboys signing right tackle Terrence Steele to a 5-year, $87 million deal. And then finally, we'll end the news here with just a little signing with the Minnesota Vikings signing former Dolphins running back Myles Gaskin. And this leads a wide open path to him to become the running back 2 there in Minnesota. With injuries from Kene Nwangwu and inconsistent play from Ty Chandler, he could be the number 2 guy behind Alexander Mattison pretty easily.
I like that TJ Hawkinson extension. That now makes him the highest paid tight end in the NFL over guys like George Kittle and Travis Kelce. And he's going to have to prove it this year that he's worth it. But I definitely think that he can do it. And it's nice to see from an Iowa kid to get that.
Gotta love the Iowa boys. I actually got a sweet TJ Hawkinson jersey, Iowa jersey. Since he was Iowa and Minnesota, it was perfect.
Nice.
I got one of the Iowa alternative uniforms. I'll have to wear it one of these episodes. It is an awesome jersey. I love it so much. It'll be my new game day go-to for sure. So now we are going to finally jump into our Week 1 predictions, starting with none other than the kickoff game itself, and the Detroit Lions heading to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. And Cal and I start this year by agreeing. We both have the Chiefs on this one. I do like the Lions. It kills me to root for them with them being an NFC North team, but I really like the Lions. Love Dan Campbell. I think they got a lot of young guys who can play. Jared Goff is going to continue to kind of prove himself and show that he's not the complete bust that a lot of people call him. But at the end of the day, they're still going against the Kansas City Chiefs. No matter what attrition Kansas City goes through, they still seem to be an amazing team, because as long as they have Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce, they are just an elite team, which I'm sure Callan will touch on a little more later, but they might not have one of those 3 people for this game. But overall, I just can't not pick the Chiefs in an opening day matchup, especially when going against a hyped up but unproven Lions team.
Yeah, I got the Chiefs here because, well, one thing is that Jared Goff has never played in Arrowhead. This will be his first time playing in Arrowhead, which is just a totally different experience if you've ever been there. It's definitely the loudest, or one of the loudest NFL stadiums. So I think that will definitely affect him. And the last time Goff and Mahomes faced off was that Rams-Chiefs game from 2019
sounds about
Monday
right.
Night Football.
It was a true battle
I
of the
believe
century.
it was 58-54. We got
54 to 51.
50,
But
yeah, I
the
knew it
Rams
was something
came out
like
on
that.
top there.
But yeah, Jared Goff did beat Mahomes, but I think that Mahomes will be able to exercise his demon from that game and get the win here. And one thing that will be interesting to watch is that the Chiefs will be without Chris Jones, who is still holding out with his contract dispute. So that was one of their main pass rushers will be out, and possibly even Travis Kelce, who hyperextended his knee in practice today, which is on a Tuesday that we're recording. So we'll have to see if he can get healthy enough by Thursday to play, but right now he's questionable.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, though, when they lost Tyreek Hill, everyone gave him crap. When they had injuries to Mahomes and other guys in the playoffs last year, everyone gave him crap. They just seem to be able to do it no matter what, though. So we'll see how it goes for them. Next up, we have the first game for the Minnesota Vikings with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. And we continue to agree here. I, of course, have the Minnesota Vikings, and Callan does as well. It's going to be really interesting to see. My key focus in this game is going to be Brian Flores in that defense. And I think this is a really good, I'm going to call it a warm-up game, which sounds mean, but it is kind of a warm-up game. The Bucs are going to be one of the lesser offenses we're going to face all year. And because they're going to be really needing a warm-up game themselves, having a lot of new players and a lot of new faces on that Bucs offense. So it's going to be amazing for Brian Flores to kind of get a feel for the game, and a lot of those starters get a feel for the game. Because a good number of those guys didn't get any preseason snaps this year. I don't think Byron Murphy got any. I know Danielle Hunter didn't. I know Harrison Smith didn't. So it's going to be a little bit of shaking off the rust for them at first. I think the Bucs are going to have an okay season, better than people are giving them credit for, but I think they take a loss here in week 1.
Yeah, I do too. And I will say, if this game was in Tampa Bay, I might have picked the Bucs, but because it's in Minnesota, just like with being in Kansas City, it's a different atmosphere in that U.S. Bank Stadium. And I've been there, and it certainly is a tough place to play. I will be looking at how well Baker Mayfield plays. I think that'll be the key to how well he does. If he really wants to resurrect his career, he needs to start early and start getting those passes to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and really airing it out and showing that he can be a true quarterback, maybe a pocket passer instead of more of that scrambler. But I think that the Vikings are just going to be too much for the Bucs to handle in this one.
Baker's shown he can be clutch, but he does struggle to show any consistency at all throughout his career. Next up, we have a game that includes our first upset of the 2023 season. We have the San Francisco 49ers heading across the nation to go take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we both agree on the Steelers, but I have them marked as my upset. I am all in on the Pickett to Pickens connection. And I think it's going to be too much for that 49ers defense. I think the 49ers have a lot of question marks right now around Brock Purdy. I feel like that's a pretty unpopular opinion. A lot of people think, injury or not, surgery or not, Brock Purdy is the second coming of Tom Brady, the late round guy, the undrafted guy, whatever you want to say. He was pretty much undrafted with that last overall pick. I am just not on the Brock Purdy hype train. I think he's going to really struggle. He played well in the preseason, but he also didn't go against full talent in the preseason. And the preseason and the regular season are just different beasts, to say the least. I know that's funny to say with the guy who won a few playoff games for his team last year, but you don't need to be very good to win a playoff game as a 49ers quarterback. I think a man named Jimmy G proved that for a couple of years in a row before Brock Purdy. So I have the Steelers taking a week 1 upset.
Yeah, I too have the Steelers winning this one, and one key thing here is that it is a West Coast team going to the East Coast to play a 1 o'clock game, and that's the 10 a.m. body clock game. And this is a team that's going to spend most of its, or almost all of the offseason on the West Coast. So this is going to be quite a trip for them to start off the week 1. They're not, maybe won't be as used to the jet lag after, maybe some mid-season traveling so much. But I really think that that could have an effect this week, just because it is week 1 and it's such a far distance to travel. But also, if Brock Purdy can just be a game manager, and as long as Christian McCaffrey doesn't get hurt, it's going to be a really good game, I believe. And it could be quite a shootout right there in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see what both of these offenses are able to do. Moving on, we have one upset to the other. We have the Houston Texans heading to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. And this time, Callan takes the Texans as his upset. But for the first time this episode, we do not agree because I stick with the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Ravens are just going to be too much for this young team. The Texans are going to have a good season down the road, and I think the next few years, the Texans are going to be true playoff contenders. Dare I even say possible Super Bowl contenders with some of the young talent they have on that team. But they are exactly that, young talent. They're still learning. This is their first time in a real NFL regular season game, and they're going against a pretty damn good and well-coached Baltimore Ravens team. So I think the Ravens are going to be too much for the rookies.
Yeah, it will be a difficult game for Houston, but I believe that they'll be able to pull it out because they're going to have a lot of momentum going into this and a lot of energy. I think that Baltimore could possibly be overlooking Houston early because this is one of the highest spreads of the week for a week 1 game. I believe it's a 10-point spread where Baltimore is favored.
That's a lot for week
So
1.
that's a lot for week 1. And I think that Houston will be able to pull enough together and really be able to show that they can be an explosive offense with Dameon Pierce and CJ Stroud at quarterback. And I think they're going to prove that they can, come together and really form into this really good offense and surprise the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah. If it was in Houston, like you said earlier about a different game, if it was in Houston, I'd maybe consider the Texans. But with them also going to Baltimore in the rookie's first game, it's just going to be tough. Now, next up, we have our game of the week with the Green Bay Packers heading to Chicago to take on the Bears. And again, we are divided. This one, Callan has the Packers, of course, but I have the Bears. This is a game of the week for us because it's, of course, one of the oldest rivalries in the book, one of the best known rivalries. And also, it's really teams heading in opposite directions, or at least expectations heading in opposite directions. It always used to be the Bears were just expected to do nothing, weren't going to go anywhere, and the Packers should have always been playoff contenders with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. But now Justin Fields is getting some hype. They pick up DJ Moore in the offseason. And the Packers lose Aaron Rodgers. They have a lot of injuries and question marks around their team. So it's going to be a really fun game and a prove-it game for the Bears to show if they're as legit as people say they are. And I think that they will prove it against this Packers team. The Packers have a lot of young guys, including, of course, Jordan Love, who isn't overly young, but is making his first start of his first starting season. It's a confusing way to say it. But I think that Justin Fields is going to really shock that defense because they always have struggled a little bit against running quarterbacks, and the Bears are going to pick up a win at home.
I do fear the running quarterback. That has been one of the Achilles heels for the Packers defense for about as long as I can remember. For whatever damn reason, we just cannot stop those running quarterbacks. But they want Justin Fields to throw the ball more. And I think one interesting stat here is that the top 3 cornerbacks for the Green Bay Packers all have at least 1 interception against Justin Fields, who is a career 5-22 since he's been in the NFL. So I just think that actually Justin Fields may be going in the wrong direction because after that many games, maybe you can't just figure it out. And one other thing is that, doesn't ownership somehow just transfer over, to the next? How does that work when one owner leaves and
It took me so long to realize what you were talking about. Just because Aaron Rodgers owned the Bears doesn't mean Jordan Love owns the Bears. He has to prove himself. He has to earn the deed to the Chicago Bears.
And I believe that he will by a very spectacular performance that will happen this Sunday. And I believe that he will shock the world and put together at least 200 yards and a couple of touchdowns.
Interesting predictions. We'll see how they go, how it comes to fruition. Now to finish off, we got our 2 primetime games, starting with an NFC East divisional matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants, a game that we again split. Callan has the Cowboys in this one. I have the Giants. I think this is going to be a really good game overall. It's an awesome divisional matchup to start it. Daniel Jones just got paid this offseason. Saquon Barkley kind of got paid this offseason a little bit. Kayvon Thibodeau is trying to continue his tour de force as a young guy. we're going to really have to see how this Giants team can come together. And no matter what, this is going to be a close game. So I just ended up going with the home team and seeing if that home team advantage can help the Giants out in this one.
Yeah, and I went with the Cowboys because I think that Mike McCarthy is going to air it out and really want to show that the way that the last year started and the way last year ended was just more of a fluke. And I think he's going to try to show that he can be the play caller that he once was and really air it out and throw the ball. I could see Dak Prescott throwing it 40 or 50 times in this game. And I think if he does that, then the Cowboys win against a young Giants secondary.
Yeah, he will definitely be able to pick apart that Giants secondary because they are going to be going through a little bit of loops early in the season, to say the least. And then finally, with our Monday Night Football game, we have an AFC East matchup this time with the Buffalo Bills heading down to into New York to take on the New York Jets. And we finished this episode off just as we started by agreeing. We both have the Buffalo Bills in this one. I think it's going to take a few games for Aaron Rodgers to really adjust. He looked really good on that one preseason drive he got, but that's only one drive, and he's going against one of the better defenses and better all-around teams in the entirety of the AFC to open up his time as a Jet in the regular season. So I think he's going to have a little bit of growing pains. I think that the New York Jets have gotten a lot of hype this offseason, and that's going to kind of work against them here, and the Bills are going to come out, play well, and pick up a Week 1 win on the road.
Yeah, I think the Bills will win this one too because, like you said, it takes a while for Aaron Rodgers to really adjust to his receivers. And even though he does have Lazard and Cobb, it's a different system. It's a different playbook that he has to relearn that. So he has to adjust himself to a new playbook, and that takes a little bit for him. I have past experience. It does. But once he does figure it out, he does really good at it. But because it's going to take a little bit for him to really get that figured out, I think the Bills are going to take advantage here. They're one of the more complete teams in the NFL, being one of the top AFC contenders for the last few years. And one key thing here is Josh Allen. Will he return to MVP form? He's eluded that Super Bowl appearance. We'll have to see if he can put it together this year and get to that Super Bowl.
Yeah, the Bills didn't really have much turnover last year. They didn't really gain anyone new. They didn't lose anyone new. And the Jets are the dead opposite. They got new faces everywhere, including quarterback, of course. They've lost a lot of people this offseason, so it'll be a fun game to open for the Bills and Jets. So that is our Week 1 NFL predictions. I just realized about halfway through that I forgot to do a kind of breakdown on how we do the scoring. We will score these games and keep track of correct answers and keep track of them throughout the entire season and have a regular season winner as well as a playoff winner. Every game, if you get it right, is worth 1 point, except for the lock, if you get that correct, the upset, if you get that correct, or the game of the week, if you get that correct, are all worth 2 points apiece. And if you get a lock or an upset on the game of the week, then that game is worth 4 points for you. Pretty simple scoring, but just wanted to give a quick rundown of that since it's our first episode of the year. So keep an eye out for our next episode, which will be a recap of Week 1 next week, as well as another episode is our predictions for Week 2. But until then, don't forget
to eat the W.